Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance, the Saturday night conference call. Tonight we are featuring several victims of organized stalking and electromagnetic harassment, who'll be sharing briefly with us and for our listening audience their story of harassment and even torture at the hands of covert operatives. For those who are new to this topic, organized stalking occurs when a single individual is stalked and harassed by one or more groups of people. Every area of a person's private life is invaded and interfered with, from home to place of employment, to personal business dealings, to relationships between family, friends, and associates. The object of the harassment is to, quote, drive people crazy, unquote, as was stated by one of the perpetrators of this crime. Electromagnetic harassment is where individuals are targeted with frequencies of directed energy in the form of microwaves, sonic waves, lasers, and other types of covert weaponry. These attacks from so-called non-lethal weapons cause burning and stinging sensations to the outer layers of skin, as well as damage to internal organs. The effects of these attacks range from mild to extremely severe and can at times lead to fatalities. Our first speaker tonight is Bob from San Diego. Bob?
Yeah, hi. My name is Bob from San Diego. I'm a victim of gang stalking. It has been going on since the mid-1980s. I was targeted because I was alone, did not have a girlfriend. The stalkers apparently assumed that I was a homosexual and expected me to express a sexual interest in other males. When I inevitably did not do this, the stalkers began attacking me. During this period, from the mid-1980s to now, I have experienced, at frequencies far beyond normal, all of the following: a derogatory name-calling many hundreds of times, physical assault, my mail has been stolen and damaged, crimes that I have not committed have been blamed on me, harassment and stalking by law enforcement vehicles, fire department vehicles, and taxis, the slander campaign, lies are spread that I am a homosexual or a criminal, the noise campaign, sirens, car alarms, loud engine accelerations, loud booming sounds from vehicles, beeping sounds, tire screeching sounds follow me around wherever I go. People who interact with me are abnormally hostile. The harassment is often tied to when I do something, leave my apartment or walk around my apartment, for example. 24-hour surveillance. I receive harassing emails and phone calls. My neighbors are unusually hostile. I experience street theater, which are staged skits designed to frighten or upset me. For a long time, many years, I did not understand why these things were happening to me. I thought that I was just unusually unlucky. Finally, in March 2005, I learned that what I was experiencing was the work of an organized group of stalkers, that there were many other victims like me. That's my prepared written statement.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Now let's go to Bruno in San Francisco.
Yes, my name is Bruno. I live in San Francisco, and I've been a victim of both organized stalking and electronic harassment for 2.5 years. For me, it began 2.5 years ago. While driving on the road, I began noticing that other cars were following mine. Sometimes the drivers would give me funny looks to make it obvious I was being followed. If I were to go into a grocery store or any other public place, I would be followed on foot. If I were to turn around and look at the person following me, they would stop and then pretend they were looking at something on the display case, and then when I turned around, they would resume following me again. Where I lived, I also began noticing that my neighbors were starting to avoid me one by one. I talked to a couple of them and asked them why this was, and I only got vague answers in return. It was strange responses such as, we don't know what, or we know what's going on, but we can't say anything about it. After about 2 months of this, I went to the police and told them everything that was going on, And I was quite surprised that they seemed very unsympathetic to what I was experiencing, and they just merely told me to take down license plate numbers or consider moving, and they didn't seem to want to help me in any way. I did end up moving eventually, but the harassment followed me to my new place of residence. Looking for answers, I turned to the internet, and there I discovered the subject of organized stalking, also referred to as gang stalking. Simply put, it's when a large group of people gang up on a single targeted individual to harass them. It is done in a very covert manner using sophisticated psychological warfare techniques. Tactics include stalkings, neighborhood noise campaigns, and the spreading of rumors based on lies or half-truths. Who is doing this? According to David Lawson, author of Cause Stalking, a private investigator who infiltrated the organized stalking network for 12 years. This is being done by cults and extremist groups and is basically used to instill fear within the community. Around the same time, I also became aware that I was a victim of electronic harassment via the remote use of directed energy weapons. While at home, I began noticing that I was experiencing strange tingling sensations. These tingling sensations were very artificial and electronic-like. They didn't feel at all natural, and they would move and migrate to different areas of my body. At one point, these sensations increased to such a level that my entire body felt like it was enveloped in a high-energy electrostatic field. I also would occasionally experience sharp pains that felt like electric shocks. And also I began experiencing headaches, which was strange because I never had a problem with headaches in the past. And I'd feel fine, and then within a very short period of time, maybe just 2 or 3 seconds, a headache would come on, and it would linger there for several minutes, and then as quickly as it came, it would go away. Some feel that this is part of a secret government program that is a continuation of the government's MK Ultra program, which began in the 1950s and was investigated by the Church Committee congressional hearings in the 1970s, and in which mind control experiments were done on unsuspecting citizens. And while others believe that this is actually being done by organized crime and other criminal groups who have appropriated this technology. In conclusion, I'd just like to say that I've worked hard my entire life. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm not a criminal or anything, and in networking with other targeted individuals, I find that we as a group are very decent and intelligent people. We pay our taxes. We're not terrorists or anything, and nor do we pose any threat to our country. I'm appalled at the fact that law enforcement and government as a whole refuses to do anything about this, to address this problem. You know, why are innocent citizens being harassed for no reason whatsoever? This has to stop. I would urge everybody to do what they can to educate others about this and those in power to investigate this. With education comes awareness, and with awareness comes change.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Bruno. And we now go to Gina in Chicago.
Hi, I'm Gina, and as some of you heard in the beginning, I did tell a little bit of my story. I've had some bad luck over the last few years, like a job loss and things like that, and financial, problems. But I did graduate from college. I worked my way through at night, and I also worked in downtown law firms here in Chicago. I really began noticing this in August of 2005 when an actual physical person began showing up outside my window and saying things that were just awful, very sexual things, very deviant behavior. I tried to get rid of him. He was somebody that I did meet a while back that I thought was a good person, but he really was not. Well, he kept it up until he sexually assaulted me at 3 a.m. in the morning on September 23rd of 2005. I then moved from there to another apartment. I've moved 4 times in the last 2 years, and I have been followed. Each time I move, he'd show up with more stalkers, and generally what they do is they stalk me at night. It's usually between midnight and 5 a.m. every night. It's either with voice-to-skull communication or other means. I've always lived in vintage apartments in the city, so I'm not always in a high-rise. However, I did move in a high-rise, and they did live in the apartment below me. They will go to extreme measures to get you. I've been a victim of rape. A year after that, I was a victim of gang rape by these people. They murdered my cat. They murdered my fish. They've tampered with my food. They've tampered with my car. They've cut up my clothes. They've destroyed property. They've stolen things, and they've taken them permanently. Sometimes they take them and they bring them back just to set me off. I've even had them crawl on my window at night and steal my apartment keys, so when I went to get them one morning, I couldn't even lock my apartment for the day. They were totally gone off my microwave. I have suffered voice-to-skull communication, and I have also suffered from the microwave radiation burn. If you're experiencing extreme fatigue and your head feels very heavy and you feel very depressed in the morning, chances are that they did signal the microwave and burn you at some point during the night. Once I started reading about this type of harassment, I learned that I unplugged my microwave now, and I don't suffer that anymore. I'm not suffering from the microwave burn. However, earlier they were asking for proof of damages. I know now that I have 12 brain lesions in my brain, and I do believe it's from the fatigue and the microwave burn. So this radiation can cause problems for you. They use drugs. They use a lot of LSD. They can access your home at night while you're sleeping. Don't think they can't, and they can turn violent. My sister has now had things stolen out of her home, too. They are targeting her a little bit. And while I'm not happy about that, I do know now that my family is more aware now that it really did happen and it's not my imagination. I also had a friend who was attacked last week. She had a wallet stolen, and a month later, someone came up and grabbed her by her hair, and then someone got on the bus and started talking to her about getting a haircut. A lot of times, if you listen to the voice-to-skull communication, which you don't really have a choice, they've tried to change me into a bisexual as well. I'm a very straight woman. I have nothing against the gay community or the homosexual community. I think everybody has the right to live the way they want to live. But this particular group does try to make me become a bisexual, and I think that's their goal. I think I know that they're bisexual, and they want others to be like them. I know that some of them can be very mentally ill. I've dealt with these people for so long, I even know some of their names now. They usually don't approach me by day. They said they're a little bit afraid of me. They have, like I said, approached some of my friends and tried to hurt them a little bit. But I have been reading on the website, and I did notice that David Lawson is now linking this to satanic ritual abuse. A lot of what has happened is very satanic. Having your home destroyed. I was told that if I decide to have a child now in my life, that they're going to find a way to kill him while he's in the womb. I will miscarry him. They threaten me constantly. And it's a very bad situation. I'm just hoping to come forward because I want people to know that they're not alone. They've tried to destroy my job. They do their best to keep me up all night so that I'm late for work. I've had some very difficult times, and I'm very lucky because a lot of friends are now very supportive of this. I think I've only lost one friend throughout this whole thing. So I just want people to know that these people, if they haven't touched you physically, they can. They can become very violent. Like I said, I was sexually assaulted, and it was always at night. So you want to be careful. If you have dogs or whatever you have, keep your doors shut. Lock them. These guys pick locks. I sleep with furniture in front of my door now. They cannot access this apartment. I've moved again. I just basically want to tell everybody, please be very careful and don't think that they can't touch you physically because they can. The police aren't always of help. Sometimes the police are involved. My saving grace was the hospital reports. They really helped me, and they're helping me through a victim's assistance program to get my medical bills paid for the sexual assaults. The police were really no help. They never viewed any videotapes at the apartment that I lived, and they said they did. And after I spoke to security, security told me the police never really even came to the building. And I've complained to the Office of Professional Standards for Police, and my reports disappear. So my hope in coming out here tonight is to let people know that they're not alone, and just to be cautious. I want to caution people. I don't want to see rape victims or murder victims or suicide victims. I want people to, try and stay strong, to know that they're not alone in this, and suicide doesn't have to happen. Homicide doesn't have to happen. There are other people who are here to support you. So I'm all over the websites constantly, and I'm constantly telling my story. You'll see it pop up everywhere. So I don't want to take up too much time. I really want to hear other stories, but I just want to caution everyone to be careful and to let them know that I'm thinking of them every time I come forward and tell my story. I hope that this gets rectified. I send anonymous letters to the FBI talking about this and telling even some of the names that I've caught. I try to listen to them now, too, versus having them always take information from me. They access my bank account. They do a lot of things. They talk about how much money I have in the bank, or if I don't have it, or, oh, my God, is this check going to bounce? Or there's a lot of things they do to instill fear, and it's very difficult to overcome that, but I think that we all can overcome the fear and do something about this that's positive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gina. I did want to...
Oh, and one more thing. Can I say one more thing, Derrick? I'm a Christian.
Yeah,
I'm a Christian, and I'm severely chastised by them for being a Christian. I also work in downtown Chicago, Loop law firms, and most of them are the leaders are Jewish, and I am called a Jew lover constantly and chastised for being a Christian, and this is very disturbing to me. But I did want people to know that because I heard someone mention earlier about Christianity and all the different things that are going on. But I am chastised for being a Christian and for working for Jewish individuals here in the city constantly. So I don't know if anyone else is experiencing that, but I am. Okay, Derrick, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gina. Also, you mentioned something that I think we should kind of explain to the listening audience. Mm-hmm. You touched on voice-to-skull communication.
Yes.
Could you explain what that is and how that happened to you?
It's really, the voice-to-skull concept is very difficult for many people to understand. First of all, a lot of times when you get voice-to-skull communication, you a lot of times probably will experience it after you hit a certain stage in your sleep. At least that's what I've experienced. Apparently, it's an equipment that can send a signal to an audio output in your home, such as the microwave or a VCR or a TV, anything with a speaker that has an audio output. And it can actually operate on a frequency that your brain operates on, so it can bypass your audio, hearing, your own ears, and still be picked up by your brain. So you can hear what they're saying whether you want to or not. And a lot of times, gang stalking victims and victims of voice-to-skull communication are diagnosed with psychosis because they hear voices. And that is a tactic that these people use to make you look as though you are psychotic, when in fact it is voice-to-skull communication. When it first started happening to me, it was very maddening, and I knew there was something wrong, so I didn't run to a psychiatrist right away. I ran to the Internet, and I started reading more and more, and as I fell into the gang stalking category, I realized that they use a lot of voice-to-skull. Like I said, it's a frequency that operates on the same frequency as your brain. So it picks it up whether you want to hear it or not. Earplugs will not help you not hear it. You will still hear it. And they can control your dreams. They can remake you live through a rape. They can terrorize you through voice-to-skull. It can be very maddening, and it can drive you to be suicidal. So you have to be very careful. I've really tried to cut back on what I have in my house. I literally put my VCR and everything in the closet at night. They're still coming through every night, but they're doing it, I think, on their own because I've unplugged my microwave, so I'm not getting that radiation burn or that output from there anymore. So, and I leave my radio on all night, which does run interference for voice-to-skull. And I also leave the air conditioner on or a couple different radios, but it has to be on a very strong station. From my understanding, there's no way to really block it permanently unless you get an audio jammer or something like that. I'm still reading about this, but I also suffer electronic zapping at night, and I think Bob say that he suffers from that as well. They zap my teeth because I just got braces. They do all kinds of things to really cause me a lot of pain, but the voice to skull is very severe. It's a very severe mind torture. So if any of you are experiencing that, that's what that is. And it is designed to make you think that you are insane. It is designed to drive you insane. So if you are experiencing voice to skull, you can read about it. I've read a little bit. The people who are doing this to me, a lot of them are airline pilots, and I did read that the Air Force had a lot of this type of technology. So I hope that helped, Derrick.
Okay, great. Thanks for the explanation, Gina.
Sure.
Okay, let's go now to Juanita, who's in Pensacola, Florida.
Hello. My stalking started actually May 2006. I was a crisis intervention specialist at a high school here. I had just moved into that position. Prior to that, I was a teacher for 4 years at the same school. When I moved into the position, there was a lot of discipline issues that were going on that really were illegal. And I raised some issues with it, and it didn't go over well with a couple of administrative leaders there. And so I filed a complaint at the district level. At that point, the state came in and did an audit of the discipline and cited them over these discipline issues. And this was a school that has a very high minority ratio. And these students were being put out of school and just a whole lot of things that were happening. And so once the complaint was filed, I started to notice that I was being followed around town by law enforcement officers, unmarked vehicles, nearly ran off the road coming home from work. It just started to progress. I went to my district level supervisor, the assistant superintendent of school, and no one could give me any answers. And so, I did transfer from that position thinking that it would stop. Well, we had come into the summer of 2006, and all of a sudden, I'm being followed in the stores, and of course they did surveillance on me. There's a wooded area behind my house, and the woods were coming down. I actually took some pictures of people on the other side, which is another neighborhood, standing, watching, me come in and out. That was before they put the cameras in my house. And so, of course, it progressed on throughout the summer of 2006. It wasn't until around October that it really started with the gang stalking, where I was actually, followed by, different groups, different people. I started to be mobbed at work. My colleagues would, do the surveillance type, undercover operations, and they would send out, they would have kids as decoys, just a whole lot of exploitation of, young students, which really angered me. I filed several complaints with the Attorney General, in which they told me to go back and do privacy acts with the police department. Did that, and of course, the sheriff and the police department both said that they weren't investigating me, but yet the mobbing and the gang stalking continued. It continued throughout, the year of 2006. And then January 2007, it seemed to kind of take a different turn. Even though the gang stalking continued, I started to, do a lot of research on it, and, I found the various websites that dealt with it. I learned to, become proactive in all of this, because one of the things they want you to do is be isolated. And so, I really kind of set my mind on doing the very opposite of what their goals were. So, if they want me to be isolated, I became pretty, assertive and aggressive in reaching out to my colleagues and, making sure I stay in contact with family members, things like that. It was very important. Of course, I began to notice that somehow, I don't know what they did, but they seemed to have intimidated my husband. I don't know if he was set up or entrapped or whatnot, but he seemed to, be in denial, and then he would start doing little, gaslighting things, and it just, kind of, it really did bother me, but I knew that they were really trying to get in between my relationships. And so my determination was that, everything that they tried to do, like isolate you, and I did the research on the website, and some of their goals. I worked the opposite of what they would do. I learned that they hate cameras, and so I have quite a few of them. If I have a surveillance system, and then, of course, I keep a video camera in my car, because they love to try to cause accidents, having cars pull up, quickly onto the road, or, do things to try to startle you, things like that. So I've learned to, keep an emergency kit in my car at all times. There are, kits that you can buy through, some of the department stores that have everything at your fingertips that you might need, because they love to, I hear that they will stall your battery, so we actually got like a automatic battery charger and things like that kind of helps when I'm out on the road by myself. It wasn't until, I guess, March of this year that they started with the electronic harassment. I noticed that, there's been some manipulations in my house in terms of, putting holes in the walls and different areas being magnetized. And, of course, I've checked my electrical outlets and things, and you can see what they've manipulated. And, they use the microwaves here in my house. I noticed the pain. It wasn't, I guess, once they started, it increased in intensity. They would hit my chest really severely. Then they, when I started to, use shielding for that, they went for the head, and they actually started using the microwaves in my classroom around May, and it became very intense, even with the students, in the classroom. The students would have breakouts, they would have headaches, their eyes would swell, different things like that, it just really, indicated to me that these people are heartless and cruel, and they really don't care, who they affect in the midst of this.
You have about 2 minutes, Juanita.
But, I'm at that point now where I believe that you have to be very proactive I mean, you have to be just as vigilant as they are. The more you do, it seems as though, the more they at least keep it low-key. And I found that, getting myself out there, getting involved with civil rights organizations, they have to be a little more careful. And so if I can give anybody some, advice on how to, deal with this, make sure, and I was told this by an attorney, that you keep a camera on you as much as possible. Try to find some very good, cameras that you can use, covert cameras, and then get involved as much as possible and contact your congressional representative or senator. That is very important. That information came, from an attorney as well. So you really need to do that. That will help validate some of what you go through. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Juanita. And we now go to Mary in New Jersey.
Okay. My son and I have been victims of electromagnetic torture, car stalking, and street theater for a minimum of 8 years. We have been run from one apartment to the other and from town to town over a period of 8 years or more, and it continues. The towns are Vineland, Bridgeton, Port Norris, and Millville. All are in the state of New Jersey. Multiple stalkers have overtly and covertly kept us on around-the-clock surveillance. A patrol of people from other streets, neighborhoods, and cities are funneled past my residence every day around the clock. Many play loud boom sounds, and most of these vehicles had loose mufflers, no mufflers, and other contraptions rigged on them to make them loud and disturbing and harassing. They are privately owned vehicles, business vehicles, commercial and government vehicles. They're cars, tractor-trailers, mail trucks, pickups, and vans. Because of this noise, for several years, we could not hear a knock at the door or the normal sounds that can be heard in a house, and I could not do things that required a small amount of concentration. They have commandeered our neighbors and others, coerced, lied to, and intimidated them into following, punishing, harassing, mocking, taunting, torturing, and violating us continually and nonstop throughout this period of time. Daily, we are bombarded with problems which could happen to anyone on any given day, but the stalkers have caused these things to occur at a mind-boggling level of frequency. They have also recruited many other people to torture and harass us, and these people in turn recruit still others. When I observe them while they are stalking and harassing me, they give me the impression that they have been told that they have to get even with me for some reason. We are also victims of electromagnetic slow-kill weapons torture. This takes place in our home, on Aaron's job, and everywhere else we go. I was in Bridgeton one day shopping, and Mexican men were tailgating me in and out of parking lots from one location to the other, following me in and out of stores, practically sticking to me like glue. I ran into the state trooper barracks and told them what was happening. A trooper came from behind the door, held his hands out in front of him with his palms facing toward the ceiling and said, "They're militia." A white woman was following me from store to store. She had a young African-American female with her, whom she was instructing how to stand beside me and mock and taunt me by mimicking my movements while I examined items I intended to purchase. People were following me from store to store and everywhere in vehicles playing horribly loud boom noises. They would follow me into every store and make the cashiers and others in the store follow and harass me. They would pull up behind me, smoking cigarettes and playing this loud music when I stopped at a gas station to get gas in my car. A white man would sit along country roads and supermarket parking lots and come at me with his white pickup truck. I went to the Millville Police Department the day of the parking lot incident where the man had come at me with his white pickup truck. I asked them if they could go and get him. I was told they could not go after him because of the ongoing investigation. This is the same man that coached and motioned with nods of his head to some teenagers to snicker and laugh while they sat behind me, causing me to become so uncomfortable that I got up and left out of the courtroom and went outside to look for a stick to protect myself. He sat over to the left of the courtroom where the lawyers sit. That was the night they targeted Aaron so severely that I had to take him to the hospital emergency room. Immediately after leaving the courthouse, a white man would sit up. Oh, I read that already.
Mary, you said that they were targeting Aaron.
Oh, yeah.
In what way were they targeting him?
They shot Aaron with this electromagnetic stuff. We were standing up in the courtroom because there was no room, and Aaron broke out in a severe sweat. Aaron doesn't leave my side. He told me he couldn't stand up. He had to go and sit down, and I couldn't leave the courtroom, so he went out and sat down by himself. And then he was out there a few minutes, and I went out to check on him, and he was still sitting down. He couldn't stand up. So I took him to the emergency room. That has happened in a few locations. He just got real weak and real nervous, and he was fanning himself and sweating profusely. Upon returning home from shopping, the police would knock on my door and inform me that neighbors were calling them when I left home because black guys were hiding in the ivy on the side of the house and climbing up on my roof when I was away. They rigged tapping sounds behind my walls, underneath the floor, on the roof, and under the steps. I discovered magnet, which seemed to be finely ground, had been put in a herb supplement called slippery elm that I was taking for my stomach problems. My walls, appliances, and ceilings over top of my bed popped loud when they pop loud. People were sent next door every day to follow me and bang on floors, walls, and other objects as I walked from room to room on my side of the house. I lived in a half double and the other side was empty at the time. My vehicles are vandalized nightly, and one was stolen from the place I reside at now. These and hundreds of other things went on every day, all day long, day after day and year after year. It seems whatever anyone could find that was noisy was brought to me. White men would drive behind young black men, seemingly forcing them to drive past my residence playing boom noises. The black guy looked scared to death. My walls, appliances, and ceilings over top of my bed popped loud. Well, I read that. They presently sit alongside roads and streets waiting for us when we leave home and pull out of their driveways as we approach, tailgate us, pull over the yellow lines in the oncoming lanes approaching us, and cut back and forth in front of us while I'm driving. On the way to the cemetery, a funeral procession, they cut in front of us so many times that my relatives in the car with me took notice and started complaining. They are always there when we leave home and are waiting for us when we arrive and leave our destinations. They also have ruined and devastated every aspect of our existence over the years, including family relationships, personal finances, personal property, friendships, health, and health care. They have attempted to discredit me by making people think that I am a paranoid schizophrenic and that everywhere I lived at, my neighbors did not want me to live around them because they felt they could not trust me, so they conspired to run me off the street. Harassment episodes occur at the rate of every 5 minutes, and directed energy attacks occur at the rate of approximately every 2 minutes around the clock. Even when Aaron falls asleep at night in bed from pure exhaustion, they continue working on him. Lying in my bed, which is next to his bedroom, I can hear him thrashing around in his sleep. God help us. When I walk through the door into my bedroom, there is a signal given off from a vehicle outside somewhere. This happens every time without fail. At that time, I am being hit with these weapons. When we walk through the door into the bathroom, there's always a similar signal from outside, meaning we're being hit. When I exit my apartment or enter my apartment, the noise signal happens and we are being hit. Everywhere we sit at or stand at in my tiny apartment is rigged, so we are getting hit continuously. When I roll over in my bed, I get hit. When I lie still and am asleep, I am being hit. When I read that. When I walk past Aaron while he is at the table eating, he gets tortured. When we get out of the shower, we are being hit. When I stand at the sink or walk around in the kitchen, I am being hit nonstop. We are like caged animals being tortured night and day. I have been on pain relievers for over 30 years. I have not missed a day of having to take them twice a day. Brain scans, x-rays, and EEGs have not revealed a reason for this pain. When we leave home, we are hit at the rate of every 10 minutes continuously. I have experienced as a result of directed energy, nightmares, acid dreams, extreme fatigue, weakness, nervousness, profuse sweating, pain, intense itching, a feeling of crawling on my skin, forced awakening, dizziness, vertigo, injuries from stumbling, nausea, sighing, heating of my head and upper torso area, and severe tinnitus and memory problems. One or the other of these symptoms are experienced at the rate of every 10 minutes, continuously around the clock. They occur in clusters of 4 or 5 symptoms at a time. These symptoms: sinus pain. I have also observed coughing and excessive running of the nose in Aaron. I have taken Aaron to the emergency room several times as a result of him being hit severely by directed energy. One time was when we were in the courtroom. Oh, I just told you about that.
Okay, Mary, you have about 2 minutes left.
Okay. Aaron has autism. He has a job, and he cannot protect himself on the job. I carry signs in my rear car window. I paste neon orange letters on black poster board. I also covered my 3 ceiling-to-floor windows in the living room, as well as my car windows, with these letters when I lived in Port Norris. A judge investigated several times for me. The first time he asked me if I knew my neighbors, I told him no. He told me that my neighbors were trying to run me off the street and that because they thought they could not trust me. He said they were trying to get the kingpin and were doing it this way to protect themselves and didn't want me to get hurt. When I moved to Port Norris, he told me they were trying to help me. The police in Port Norris told me they need a couple more months and a couple more informants. A policeman in Millville told me he would not help me because they might do something to me. A policeman in Bridgeton told me they were trying to discredit me, and I'm not supposed to know. I've been assaulted. The police arrested me for calling them, but I have not gotten any help from them. I had written my story out, and that's all of it. I just read it.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Mary.
All right.
Okay, now let's go to Pat in Toledo, Ohio.
Okay, this is Pat Mouget in Toledo. I've been a victim, a target for many, many years, but it started heavily in the late 1970s and increased in the 80s, and by the time in the 90s when I moved here, I've been here about 15 years, and I watched whoever is doing this recruit people in this neighborhood one at a time. There are 4 main families in this particular block that started it all, recruited by one person. I sat and watched through all of this as the agency, and it's a security agency. They train security guards to work in the Toledo metropolitan area. That includes out quite a ways from Toledo. It includes, they work with people in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I can only tell you what I've heard them saying over the years because it's been a long time and they've done a lot of talking. When they recruited these people, you have to put in mind that they were just like you and me. They didn't know what was going on. They were not trained assassins. They were not trained terrorists. They talked a lot. They didn't realize their voices would carry in the summertime, and our houses are very close together. So I did hear a lot of their conversations. They train their kids from grade school on up. I live in the University of Toledo area, so there's also more recruitment through the college. I receive a lot of the same things that you do. Shaking of the body, interior shaking, the burns. At one point in time, they were able to completely choke me so badly that I could barely breathe, and I was in the emergency room twice. I'm on oxygen now. I have been for about 4 years, and they do manage to shut off my oxygen by remote control. I have noticed that in these houses around me, and they live in approximately 14 houses. Some of them are owned by the people that live in them. The other one is rental property, so-called, so that when the university starts up, the new kids come in and use the same houses over and over again. Even if they sell the house, the person that buys the house is going to turn into a perp if they're not already one. So they do intentionally surround the TIs. When it started out, but at one point I was working at an employment agency, and I had a visit from one man who claimed an ex-CIA agent, and he was looking for a job. And I thought, why in the world would somebody working for them come to an employment agency to look for a job? He said he lived in Detroit, Michigan, which is about 60 miles from here. 2 weeks later, I had another applicant in the sales division, is where I worked, telling me the very same thing, that he had formerly worked for the CIA. And of course, when I did call these people back, they were either not there or they'd found a job. And along about that time was when things were really speeding up, and that was in the 70s, and that's when I started paying a lot of close attention. I had been a target before then, but it was not as bad as it became in the 70s. Later on, toward the end of the 70s, my first really bad voice-to-skull came while I was taking a shower, and I still remember it to this day. All of a sudden, these voices came around saying things like, oh, look at her, she's taking her shower. Oh, look at her shake. Oh, look at her cover herself, etc. I don't even want to go into any more of it, but you get the general idea. At one point, the stories that went around were that my mother and I were the biggest prostitutes in the city of Toledo. And I quote someone who was supposed to be an officer talking, saying that they had more trouble with us than they did with anyone else. Well, my mom is dead now, and they did target her for years and years. she's gone. So now I'm the biggest prostitute, evidently, that they have in the city of Toledo. I do notice that everybody in these primary homes in my neighborhood all are given equipment to work with. One or two homes are special, so-called supervisors, and they control everything that's going to be done. Now, I'm not kidding when I tell you they use their kids. They train their kids. I've seen them from the age of 8 on up doing whatever it is they have to do, whether it's planning videotapes, audio tapes, passing them back and forth. People in my neighborhood, incidentally, whoever has been recruited by these people, all have access to this telephone conversation. So there are probably 10 houses listening to us right now, and I wouldn't know how many people in each house. I have no idea. I stopped counting a long time ago. I do have license plate numbers. I did keep a journal for years, very accurate, very thorough, very detailed. I did take pictures of various perps in the area and the neighborhood. And one day I was in my bathroom. I had just showered and washed my hair. I was drying my hair off, and there was a knock on my bathroom door. And I looked outside the door, and it was a police officer, a female. Her partner was in my living room. And so, of course, I put some clothes on, and I came out and said, yes, can I help you? And she said, your neighbors are concerned about you. And I said, why? And she said, because you're taking pictures, and they're very worried about you. I said, oh, really? And we had a bit of a conversation, and as soon as they left, I called and I complained to the mayor's office. I called the district attorney's office. I called everybody in the city of Toledo. Oh, yes, one more thing. While we were talking, the police officer told me, she said, if you take any more pictures, you will be arrested. I said, it's not against the law to take pictures of people. I've already checked with the district attorney. Well, she said a law was just passed and against the law, and you will be arrested if you take any more pictures again. Well, since then, they've come up with these neat little cameras, telephones, and I'm often standing there thinking, I wonder how many of their own friends are taking pictures of them. Point number 2, these perps in this area do not get along with each other. I have proof of that also. They do not get along with each other. That's very important when they won't work together on things. I have already managed to get letters to the police chief at one point in time about what was going on in my neighborhood. And as soon as that letter was received, I heard one of the perps telling another one, and these are the words. He said, man, he took me to the wall. He took me to the wall, and he said, you get that stuff out of there, you get it out now, and let them take care of it. Well, the next day, out of this one house, they moved an awful lot of equipment. I couldn't see because it was on the house on the other side of me, and their driveway is blocked from my view. These are just a few of the things. I won't go into any more, but much of what the previous people have talked about, I've received all of that kind of harassment, the shaking, even in bed, my limbs will go flailing for no reason at all. My arm or my leg will go up in the air, and I have absolutely no physical control over it. I saw them choke my son 2 times, just as they were choking me. And, you know, that's really something, so I can sympathize with Aaron's mother. I know how it feels to watch your son be terrorized. And my son is a grown man. He's not a little guy or anything like that. But I know how it feels to watch. It's pretty horrible. You know, it's horrible when you yourself are having it happen. Now, in my case, I have really no family left that will speak to me because they managed to get to these people. And I think I have probably 1 or 2 friends because I'm not a young gal anymore. I am 75, so a lot of my people in my age group are no longer around. However, I have been a target since the 1950s. That's all, Derrick. That'll be enough.
Okay. Well, thank you, Pat. You've been, and how many years has this been going on with you?
Since the 1950s.
Okay.
It was not hard. See, it was at first it was just like a tracking thing. There were things being said about what I was doing that nobody could possibly have known about. It was just a tracking thing at first. It was very low key, and then it increased as the years went on.
Thanks, Pat, and thanks to all of our speakers. That's all for tonight's program. We at Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance have joined together seeking solutions and awareness for these atrocities through our elected officials, the media, and community resources. Those who would like more information about this topic and our organization may visit us on the web at www.freedomfchs.com or call our toll-free voicemail number at 866-310-3117 or contact us by email at info@freedomfchs.com. I'm Derrick Robinson, the moderator for the Saturday night conference call. Thank you for listening.